These are some of the most controversial episodes of Family Guy ever. To kick things off, we see how Family Guy made fun of the physically handicapped in No Meals on Wheels. While thrift shopping for a new suit, Peter lays eyes on the comfiest onesie he's ever seen in his life.
See, they've got a flap that opens up in the back.
Are you telling me I could be pooping and warm?
That's the American dream right there. Peter loves these things so much that he even wears them to work. Lois tells him to give it a rest on the outfit, so a disappointed Peter drags his feet over to the couch.
What the hell was that?
Only just learning of the phenomenon that is static electricity, because he has the mind of a 5-year-old, Peter thinks the pajamas give him magical abilities, because he has the mind of a 5-year-old. Tired of Peter shocking everyone, Lois decides to have the carpet removed to prevent static buildup. As the last of the carpet is torn up, they find valuable treasure hidden underneath.
This is an 18th century Rhode Island ship token. This thing's gotta be worth 50 grand.
The family decides to use their newfound money to open a restaurant like they've always dreamed of. First time hearing of it, but sure. Yet things aren't exactly starting off strongly, as Brian reveals they aren't getting enough customers to break even on the restaurant. When Peter brings this up to the guys, Joe tells him that he and his buddies are looking for a new place to frequent and want to make Peter's their new usual spot.
This is awesome! Bunch of cops in uniform hanging out in my restaurant?
But that's not exactly what plays out, as Joe isn't bringing his cop buddies, but rather his fellow wheelchair buddies.
What are all these parallelograms doing here?
You mean paraplegics? These are my friends, Peter.
Lois is buzzed about all the new business, but Peter has to be a stick in the mud about the fact that they're all handicapped.
And I wanted a cool restaurant, not the cafeteria at the Veterans Hospital.
To combat his new clientele, Peter begins making up insane restaurant requirements that make him sound like a bigot.
I don't want you and your kind eating here anymore.
Jeez, you'd get thrown in jail for saying that today. Joe is heartbroken by the betrayal of one of his closest friends and proves he's willing to fight for his rights.
But we're not gonna go down easy. Okay, that was easy.
Joe returns the next day with reinforcements, and when Peter continues to refuse to budge, they take matters into their own hands.
Men, form up Crippletron!
The Transformer made out of men begins to lay waste to the restaurant, and when Stewie blinds them, the whole structure falls over and destroys the restaurant. Peter survives the encounter, but gets stuck using a wheelchair for 2 weeks while his leg heals. Peter looks to show the other handicapped how it's done, but everything from getting in the car to going down the stairs proves to be a challenge for Peter. That's karma at its finest. With a new understanding of the difficulties in his friend's life, Peter goes to Joe's house to apologize.
But I've been in a wheelchair for 45 minutes now, and I see how tough it is.
A full 45 minutes? How did you manage, Peter? Joe ultimately accepts the apology and just moves past the fact that Peter viewed them as gross monsters, I guess. But to see some real monsters, look no further than the time Family Guy sent their most prominent Jewish character back to Nazi Germany in the episode Road to Germany. During a party at the Griffins, Mort desperately runs around the house looking for a bathroom. And when he finds the bathroom locked, he mistakes Stewie's time machine for a porta potty. Honest mistake, I have a porta potty in my son's room too. An hour passes and Mort still hasn't returned, so Brian and Stewie go looking for him in Stewie's room.
My time machine has been activated.
Time machine? I didn't know you had a time machine.
Oh, this is the debut of the time machine. How iconic. Unsure of when Mort could have gone to, Brian and Stewie go on their first time-hopping adventure.
Now we've just got to figure out where we are.
Or when we are.
Oh, that's such a douche time traveler thing to say.
Heading into town, the two deduce that they're in Europe somewhere and manage to stumble across a Goldman wedding.
We're looking for a Mr. Goldman.
Mr. Mort Goldman?
They do manage to find Mort in attendance, who believes he's in heaven attending his grandfather's wedding. Seeing no real reason to rush home, Brian and Stewie decide to stay a bit to enjoy the festivities, but over in Germany, the Nazi party is preparing for their assault on Poland. Hopefully not before they cut the cake. Unfortunately, the celebrations are cut short by the invasion of the Nazi army. The trio try to return home, but Stewie's return pad doesn't seem to work. Typical. Their next best option is to head to England, which is the only place Mort can be safe from the Nazis. They try to sneak Mort out by dressing him as a Catholic priest, but he arouses suspicion when asked to perform last rites for a dead soldier.
Dear God, non-Jewish God, be a mensch.
Their cover gets blown, so the trio steals a bike and clears the checkpoint, managing to lose the Nazis by having them run into a manure truck.
Das Poop!
I think that's German for "that's poop." The three eventually make it to the coast, where they find the Nazis have already taken over the harbor. Luckily, they manage to steal a submarine and outrun their Nazi chasers.
Oh my God! It's England! We've reached England! We're saved!
Well, saved might be a bit much, as they find London war-torn from all the war. Stewie analyzes his return pad and finds that its uranium power source is all out of juice. The nearest place with any uranium just so happens to be Berlin, behind enemy lines. Getting their hands on a British warplane, the three engage in a high-stakes dogfight against the German air fleet. Their plane takes too much damage and starts to dive, but all they can find to help is a raft.
We're not sinking! We're crashing!
The raft proves to be useful as they tube their way down the mountains and rivers of Germany before finally coming across Berlin. Disguising themselves as Nazi soldiers, they sneak into the lab and manage to get their hands on some uranium. They're all ready to go until they bump into someone very familiar. The guy with the mustache is ready to have them executed. Unless...
Unless what?
Unless they can sing a charming musical number.
Oh, that they can do.
Damn it, will you two just get in the f***ing time machine?
Aw, I wanted to see that. The three make it back home and all that's left to do is tie up loose strings.
Can I poop in here?
No!
But Nazis aren't the only thing this show made light of, as the episode Peter Assment made a joke out of male sexual harassment. While recording Stewie's first school play, which is going badly by the looks of it, Peter spots actor Richard Dreyfuss in the crowd and continually questions him.
Dreyfuss, what are you doing here in Quahog?
My nephew's in the play. God, can't you go anywhere these days without these damn paparazzi?
Peter ends up submitting the video to TMZ, who actually plays it live on air, which is enough to convince Peter he's a journalist now.
You're badgering a celebrity and passing it off as news.
Yeah, journalist.
Armed with a video camera, Peter starts to harass multiple people around town, from Stewie to Tom Tucker to Mayor West. But he goes over the line when he tries to videotape Ollie Williams, confusing him for every other black celebrity he can think of.
Bernie Mac, how come you died? Oprah, why are you so fat, Don Cheadle?
Yeah, he earned that one. With his glasses broken from the punch, Peter is forced to wear his contacts instead. This piques the interest of his boss Angela, who seemingly starts falling in love with this new Peter.
I can see your eyes and your eyelashes. They're beautiful.
He may look the same to us, but Angela sees a beautiful blue-eyed angel gracefully bathing in a fountain, and I will be pouring bleach directly into my eyes after that. Angela starts taking notice of all of his other body parts as well, leading to a pretty creepy interaction.
Yeah, this is gonna work out just fine.
Peter goes to tell his family about how he was harassed at work, but Lois tells him men can't be harassed by women. Not very progressive of you, Lois. Things get even weirder the next day when Angela has Peter live out her odd fantasies by dressing in jean shorts, standing outside a dusty gas station, and wiping his neck with a soda can.
Now get out of here, you slut.
Okay, can I keep the soda?
After she invites him over to her house for a work project, Peter fears she's going to make him sleep with her.
If you have sex with her, you give her all the power. If you don't have sex with her, you're gay. You can't win.
Sure, that's how the world works, Quagmire. Quagmire does try to lend a hand by doing the deed for him by hiding inside Peter's clothes. Yet when he finally gets a look at Angela, Quagmire tries to back out of the plan.
Peter, I'm not gonna do it. Deal's off. Deal's off.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is. I'm gonna spread my legs and it'll be you doing it, not me.
Quagmire backs out, leaving Angela and Peter all alone. He continues to reject her advances, and when she threatens to fire him, Peter exclaims that he doesn't care and storms out. Good for you, Peter. Good for you. While getting drunk at the bar, Peter begins to imagine the television talking to him, telling him a real man would stand up to his boss. With enough liquid courage in him, Peter decides to drive back to Angela's and confront her. When Peter arrives at her place, he sees a ton of smoke inside her garage. Upon investigating, he finds Angela behind the wheel with the car running, and it doesn't look good. Luckily, he manages to get her out of the car and back inside before it's too late.
Why the hell did you pull me out of there? You should have just left me alone. That's how I'm gonna end up anyway.
Angela explains how self-conscious and lonely she is, seeing Peter's rejection of her as the last straw. Feeling bad for his boss, Peter devises a plan to help her out. Later that night at a fancy restaurant, Peter arrives for a date with Angela while in disguise.
I am Reginald New York Knickerbocker, millionaire.
After the dinner, Reginald, tries to slip out before anything gets too spicy, but when Angela continues to say how she needs one night with a man to keep from ending it all, he reluctantly agrees. After the deed is done, a mortified Peter goes to leave, but Angela has one last word to get in.
See you at work on Monday, Griffin.
Huh?
But it's all okay, because when I said he was mortified, I meant something else.
Oh my god, I forgot about Mort.
I want my $2.
But these aren't the only struggles Family Guy has joked about, as they've made plenty of jokes about transgender people, especially in trans fat. Peter scores tickets behind home plate at Fenway Park, and in typical fashion, he gets far too drunk. When all that liquid comes knocking, Peter decides not to wait in the long line for the men's room and uses the women's room instead.
I saw a mouse.
When that doesn't work, Peter uses the only available bathroom left, though he doesn't understand the symbol on the door. Peter can't wait to tell his friends about the new bathroom, but before he can, he sees himself on the Jumbotron.
Let's give a big Boston welcome to Peter Griffin, the first transgender Red Sox fan.
The next day at work, Peter is approached by two workers who applaud his bravery in coming out as transgender. Before Peter can say literally anything to clear this up, they reel him in with their transgender business package.
Benefits? I'm trans-listening.
It turns out his work offers extra benefits for transgender workers, and you better believe Peter is willing to play along for an extra day off. As expected, Lois and Brian think Peter's lying to his employer trivializes those who are struggling, but Peter sees himself as part of the movement even if he doesn't have a clue what he's talking about.
Hey, what is transgender anyway? Is that the stuff in potato chips that makes your bum go bam?
Peter tries to embrace his feminine side by wearing a wedding dress. You know, that thing all girls wear to the bar. The guys aren't buying it, especially Quagmire, who finds it tasteless considering he has a transgender parent. Not willing to let the world get to him, Peter gets a full makeover so he can have the true female experience, which to him just means he can say whatever he wants and do whatever he wants. Yeah, that's how the world works.
Sully could have made it to an airport.
You shut your mouth. That man is a hero.
Woman.
Peter lets his newfound carefree attitude get the better of him when he goes out to a karaoke bar and gets a bit too wild.
And hey, get off that bar!
Why?
Because you're at Low Fan O'Reilly's.
At the hospital, Peter awakens from his fan-induced coma to find his bosses by his side, who reveal the wonderful news.
We fulfilled your letter of medical intent for your sex reassignment surgery.
Yeah, it turns out that while he was asleep, they cut it off. Cue the freak out in 3, 2... Hey! I wasn't done counting! With the deed done, it looks like Peter has no choice but to make the best of his situation, learning from Lois how to be more womanly. Or should I say what the Family Guy writers think is womanly.
Can we do one last judgmental scroll through Facebook first?
Of course.
Not everyone is happy with Peter's change in attitude, as his friends ditch him when he urges them to go sit outside.
Your friends left the minute you came out here, and they didn't pay their indoor tab.
Feeling abandoned and alone, Peter visits a gay bar where he runs into Ida. Ida explains how they went their whole life hiding who they were, while Peter just stumbled into this life for his own personal gain.
I had no idea.
It's clear you had no idea. You know nothing about what it means to feel this struggle.
Peter actually feels bad for what he did, which is a shock knowing the kind of guy Peter is. Ida tells him this experience could help him become a better man and offers to help Peter, let's just say, get his groove back.
Oh, Peter, you started a Kickstarter.
Not exactly.
Oh, that's not a K.
Controversial at the time, but even more so in 2024. And if you're looking for something else that hasn't aged well, look no further than Pete-Hearted, an episode in which Peter took advantage of his mental diagnosis. During game night, Peter is feeling down when they start to play Trivial Pursuit, claiming it always makes him feel stupid. Don't think you need the game to do that, buddy. Luckily, Lois has his back, asking him questions from the preschool version of the game instead.
What color is a fire truck?
Oh God, I always get these.
This leads to Peter winning the game, which of course inflates his ego to dangerous levels. Gotta let him have the little victories, I guess. Believing himself to be a genius amongst idiots, Peter starts to act all high and mighty around his family, repeating complex words he heard on TV.
Well, Lois, since you asked, I find this meatloaf rather shallow and pedantic.
Already sick of this development, Brian says Peter should put his money where his mouth is by applying for a MacArthur Genius Grant, which will prove just how smart he is. Peter takes the test and receives his results. They're on the low end, but Brian puts it a bit more bluntly.
According to this, you're not a genius. In fact, you're mentally retarded.
This is gonna be one of those episodes that gets me demonetized, isn't it? Peter is obviously bummed out about all this, but at least he has a supporting family behind him, right?
Yeah! In your f***ing face, squad!
Man's best friend, huh? Lois tries to cheer him up by saying nothing in his life will change because of this, but the city doesn't agree, installing a sign in his front yard.
I mean, what's the purpose? Ooh, shiny red ball.
Discouraged by how the world treats him, Peter's luck turns around when he accidentally hits Tom Tucker with his car. Okay, that doesn't sound like a good thing, but Tom decides to not press charges because of Peter's condition.
Oh my God! I could get away with anything!
Sounds good for Peter, but terrible for everyone else. Taking full advantage of this, Peter does everything from throwing Bibles in church to going into the women's restroom. He even gets a state-appointed social worker who only seems to encourage his behavior.
Done!
Peter!
What? What? I don't know any better.
Peter takes his antics to a burger joint where he gets a little too excited and flings burning hot oil all over Lois. I do like my Lois extra crispy. With Lois now in a full-body cast, things get even worse when Child Protective Services comes to take the kids away from him. Okay, this one I can probably agree with. With Cleveland taking in the kids, Brian expresses to Peter that he needs to show what a good father he is to get them back, and Peter has the perfect plan.
And the best way to do that is to show what a terrible father Cleveland is.
The plan, if you can even call it that, is to fill Cleveland's house with several, ladies of the night. But this only makes him look worse, hurting his chances when it comes time for his court hearing. At the custody hearing, Peter makes a heartfelt plea to the court about how much he loves his kids, which surely will touch the soul of the judge, right?
Are you kidding? You're a monster.
Oh sure, you burn one woman and suddenly you're a monster. But everything works out when Lois returns from the hospital, managing to get the kids back despite the clear and present danger Peter poses to them. Yeah, glad the guy who makes mentally handicapped people look bad gets a happy ending. But it's not the only time a medical condition has been the cause of concern with the Griffins, as they once became anti-vaxxers and nearly killed Stewie in Hot Shots. So we open with the Griffins dealing with a bat problem. One night while trying to kill it, Peter tears apart the house before it eventually lands on Stewie's head.
Got you now, Bat Damon. I named you Bat Damon.
But Peter panics and misses, hitting Stewie in the hand by mistake. You'll never go pro with that kind of swing, Peter. Fearing his hand may be broken, they take Stewie to the hospital where they learn that everything's fine. However, Stewie is due for his vaccinations, which Lois agrees to but ends up having second thoughts after reading about possible side effects.
We were gonna get Stewie vaccinated, but now after our research, we're definitely not.
Brian strongly disagrees with their decision and fears the health risks it may cause, but Lois wants to educate the town on their discoveries to change everyone's minds. Lois decides to hold a rally to warn the public of the perceived dangers of vaccinations, but doesn't manage to pull anyone to her side, so Peter suggests they spice things up to become more enticing. And nothing says spice like a scary medical commercial.
Vaccinate rhymes with me. Would you let a doctor do that to your kid?
Hard to argue with that fact. Thanks to Peter's campaign, vaccination rates in Quahog dropped dramatically. Brian's worried about the diseases that may crop up because of this, but Peter's mostly just focused on being a hero. When Peter and Lois go to drop Stewie off at daycare, they find the classrooms empty because of a recent measles outbreak among children. Not only that, but the police are getting involved to forcefully isolate the town.
Your town is under quarantine. Until further notice, no one may enter or leave the city.
With everyone locked inside, the family immediately starts to go crazy from having to spend more time together.
Who's up for another game of hot breath telephone? We're all gonna die!
Realizing the error of her ways, Lois insists that they get to the hospital to get Stewie vaccinated. That might be a problem, however, as Peter apparently destroyed all the vaccines in town. Is it controversial to say that Peter might be more insane than the Joker? Almost immediately, Peter starts to break out with measles, which pretty much means Peter was never vaccinated to begin with. At least he's committing to the bit? Fearing for his health, Stewie starts to pack his things to run away, especially when he realizes Rupert isn't feeling well either. Not sure how that works, but sure.
Ew, that's the tushy thermometer.
Stewie decides to try to find his way out of the quarantine so he can get the measles vaccine, finally coming across the bridge out of town that's being guarded by a police checkpoint. Lois and Brian arrive not long after to find Stewie monkey barring across the underside of the bridge. But that's the least of their worries.
Oh no, upside down train!
And if that wasn't enough nonsense, Stewie is saved by parachuting actor Sean Penn just in the nick of time. He also is carrying enough vaccines for the whole town. I like to think he just has vaccines on him at all times, and this was just a great coincidence. Everything seems to go back to normal after this crisis is averted.
And only 150 people died, but not anyone we knew personally.
There's that empathy Lois is known for. But that isn't the only politicized talking point they've covered, as Family Guy took on the issue of racial profiling in the episode A Shot in the Dark. So the guys get the amazing idea of bringing Peter's couch onto the front lawn for a drinking sesh. And as they go to do the same the next day, there's one little problem.
It's gone!
What? What's gone?
A drinking couch! Somebody must have stole it!
No longer feeling safe in his neighborhood, Peter decides to start up a neighborhood watch group with the guys. Peter wants the group to carry guns, but getting those guns isn't so simple according to Joe.
You have to be certified in gun safety. Go through an extensive background screening process.
Got him.
That's America for you, for better or for worse. Lois thinks the whole idea is silly considering they live on a very safe street, but Peter takes his job as an unelected vigilante very seriously. Somebody has to do it, but maybe someone other than Peter. Literally anyone but Peter. This is quickly demonstrated when Peter notices someone trying to get into Cleveland's house, and after the intruder doesn't respond to him, he decides to open fire. But as it turns out, the intruder lives there.
Cleveland Jr.?
Mr. Griffin, you shot me!
Junior is admitted to the hospital, hopefully staying as far away from Peter as possible.
I'm sorry, sir. No visitors.
Excuse me, I'll have you know I'm the shooter.
Great. Cleveland is obviously furious, with Donna accusing Peter of being trigger-happy because the suspect was black.
That's not true. I'll shoot anybody. Joe, give me your gun.
That's true. He has and he will. Joe states that the shooting is being ruled accidental given the circumstances, but Cleveland still decides to cut ties with Peter regardless. He takes things further by going on the news and publicly labeling Peter as a bigot. So what does Peter do? He goes to prove to the world that he's not a racist, which may actually make him look more racist in the process.
I am going to go to the middle of the town square, get naked, and paint myself brown.
Lois obviously thinks pretending to be black is a stupid idea. Unrelated, but I wonder who voiced Cleveland Brown until 2021. Anyway, Lois's reaction to the idea is more than understandable.
It's a stupid idea! You're a stupid man! A stupid man!
Man, that had to be building up for years. Peter goes to Cleveland with a peace offering of booze and cigars, but accidentally ends up making a Molotov cocktail and chucks it into Cleveland's house. To make matters worse, Peter has to start speaking in ways that sound bad out of context.
Round up your family and get out or you're all gonna be sorry!
With the public fully against Peter, Joe decides to have him arrested for the shooting of Cleveland Jr. in response to the outcry. But he may not be in jail for long as Carter comes to bail him out and get him a lawyer after seeing how the media has treated him.
I'll be damned if I'm gonna sit back and let them do this to one of my own.
Wait, you mean your family?
Huh?
Don't worry, we know what you mean. At the trial, Peter's lawyers do everything they can to ruin Cleveland Jr.'s image, painting him as a thug who is dealt with properly.
Mr. Brown, please pick up this knife. Ah! He's got a knife!
Public opinion is now swung against Cleveland Jr., so Peter does the honorable thing and admits that the case was rigged and he deserves to go to jail for shooting a child. This makes Cleveland stand up for Peter, admitting there was no racial wrongdoing.
You shot him because you're stupid.
That's all I'm trying to say!
With that cleared up, the two men became friends once again, although basing an episode on the real-life tragic killing of Trayvon Martin for comedy did make some people feel a little gross. The same feeling viewers got watching Turban Cowboy, since it had a Boston Marathon scene that was removed and focused on how Peter got roped into a plot to blow up a bridge. Looking to add some excitement to their lives, Peter, Joe, and Quagmire decide to take a skydiving trip.
Alright!
Yeah, this is amazing!
Peter gets a little too into his new hobby, crashing through the ceiling everywhere from home to the library to a game of Angry Birds. If you remember that game, you should get a senior discount.
Stop smiling. 90% of the people playing this are pooping.
Never willing to let the adrenaline wear off, Peter continues to go on jumps but forgets to open his chute a bit too late.
Oh! Ground! Ah! Damn it!
Just rub some dirt in it, you'll be fine. While laid up in the hospital, Peter meets Mahmoud, a Muslim man who is set up in the same room as him. The two seem to strike up a friendship, with Peter growing curious about Mahmoud's culture. Peter invites Mahmoud to the clam after they get out of the hospital, but Joe and Quagmire find him weird when he doesn't want to talk about other women and orders a ginger ale.
Oh, I see what's going on. You guys are uncomfortable with Mahmoud because he's Muslim.
He's probably right, but it always sounds so annoying when Brian says it. Of course, they deny this, but Peter stands up for his new friend. Peter decides to learn more about Mahmoud's culture by going to a hookah bar with him, becoming even more interested when he sees how obedient Mahmoud's wife is.
So wait, let me get this straight. Sweetheart, obedient wife, and I get to shout Admiral Akbar when I do stuff?
Sounds good to Peter, who becomes a converted Muslim. And by converted, I think he's mostly just gonna wear the clothes. Mahmoud is impressed by Peter's commitment to his new faith, even inviting him to a hangout later that night with some of Mahmoud's friends.
O-M-A. I am so there.
The two head to the basement for the hangout, and although the other guys are skeptical of his inclusion, they decide to let him in on their night. Only, it's not exactly a bowl of chips and board games kind of hangout.
Look at him. He's the perfect man to help us blow up the Quahog Bridge.
Joe and Quagmire begin to suspect something is up. Maybe the phone that exploded stuff when dialed was the giveaway.
Damn phone's busted.
Peter finally clues into what's going on and wants to break things off with Mahmoud, but Joe uses his cop brain to devise a plan to use Peter to stop the group's plot.
If you can find out what they're planning next, we might actually be able to stop an act of terror.
Outfitted with a wire, Peter deduces the time, date, and method the group looks to utilize, and they plan to use Peter as a decoy to not arouse suspicion. Mission accomplished.
Sorry, can you repeat all that? I just had an itch right by my microphone.
Microphone?
With Peter's cover blown, the group moves the attack to right now, loading Peter into an exploding van and forcing him to drive to the bridge. Once on the bridge, Peter tries to talk Mahmoud out of the plan, but when he won't change his mind, Joe is thrown in to make the save. With the day saved, this calls for a celebration. Peter decides to call the clam to get his table ready, and that's the wrong phone, isn't it?
Peter, did you just...
Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go.
While that episode had a scene removed, this episode was removed entirely. When You Wish Upon a Weinstein was banned from television for nearly 3 years over its anti-Semitic portrayal of Jewish people. So Peter is approached by a scummy salesman going door to door selling volcano insurance. Priced at $200, the only way Peter could afford it is if he dipped into Lois's rainy day fund. Is there even a volcano anywhere near Rhode Island?
Don't you think we're overdue for one?
Touche, salesman.
When Lois goes looking for the money to get Meg a new pair of glasses, it's already too late. The house is insured for volcano damage. Yay? Lois makes the correct observation that she's married to an actual child.
Because if I'm a child, then you know what that makes you? A child. And I'll be damned if I'm gonna stand here and be lectured by a pervert.
Touche, Mr. Griffin. At the clam, Peter hears about how Cleveland and Quagmire's finance guys have earned them a good amount of money through investments and taxes. Instead of paying attention to their profession, you know, the thing that matters, Peter focuses more on their accountants' names.
Rosenblatt, Greenstein. So you're saying I need a Jewish guy to handle my money?
There really is nothing but static in that brain, isn't there? After overhearing Lois asking her mother for money, Peter makes a Wish Upon a Star through song to have a Jewish gentleman come into his life. Fun fact, Family Guy actually got sued for this song. Wish seemingly granted as a man shows up to his door the next morning.
Hi, my name's Max Weinstein. My car just broke down. May I use your phone?
When Max goes to leave, Peter gets a little too touchy and has to chase Max down, eventually catching him and convincing him to give him financial advice. This is how hiring someone in the real world works too. The two confront the salesman from before and actually manage to get Peter's money back. With the money back, Max is welcomed into the Griffin home with open arms. He even offers to help Chris with his math homework.
Oh my God, is there nothing you people can't do?
To hopefully curb Peter's weird views on Judaism, Max invites the family to attend temple. Surely that won't cause Peter to make any rash life changes.
I'm gonna make Chris Jewish.
Basically, he believes that if he makes Chris Jewish, he'll do better in school and grow up to be really smart. Bulletproof plan. The father and son head to Vegas, where like weddings, bar mitzvahs can be done quickly and simply. Before they can go through with it, Lois arrives in Vegas to put a stop to the ceremony. When the other bar mitzvah attendees think she's doing it for anti-Semitic reasons, the three manage to escape before things get too ugly. Peter apologizes to Lois for going overboard with this, finally realizing that we're all the same no matter what our background or religion is. But forget pretty problematic, let's finish off this video with the most controversial episode Family Guy has ever done. An episode that never aired in the US and can't be found on Hulu with the rest of the series, Partial Terms of Endearment. Peter tags along with Lois to her college reunion, but worries when one of Lois's exes comes to chat with her.
If he tries anything while I'm standing here, I'm gonna kick him right in the vagina.
Yep, it turns out that Lois used to date a woman named Naomi, which Peter is weirdly happy about. Naomi even has a proposition for Lois and Peter, and of course his mind goes to what you're probably thinking.
I'm totally dreaming right now. Well, as long as I'm dreaming, I might as well pee my pants.
Doesn't that mean he's just gonna pee the bed? Does he regularly do this when he dreams? Excited for his dream scenario, Peter kicks the kids out of the house before Naomi arrives. When she does turn up, she brings along her husband Dale, which bums Peter out but isn't exactly a deal breaker.
Dale? Alright, I guess, but I'm doing you last.
When Peter finally asks what Naomi and Dale are actually doing here, they reveal that they're unable to have kids and are looking for a surrogate and are hoping that Lois will do it. After giving it some careful thought, Lois decides to go through with it. This doesn't sit right with everyone, mostly Peter.
And I want your blessing, Peter.
You'll have my stool in your eye, and that's all you'll get. You can't have that baby.
Despite Peter's poop-throwing threat, it's her body at the end of the day, so she decides to go through with it. Peter is pretty mad about this, even going so far as to make vague threats that could hurt the pregnancy.
Sometimes things happen. The house is a dangerous place for today's modern woman.
After purposefully trying to get Lois to miscarry, Peter tries to guilt her out of having the baby, but Lois isn't having it, seeing this is a wonderful thing to do for Naomi and Dale, two people who will have long, healthy lives filled with...
Naomi and Dale Robinson were pronounced dead on arrival at Quahog Hospital.
I always jinx these things, don't I? With the soon-to-be parents dead, Lois is left unsure of what to do with the child inside of her. Meg suggests adoption, but that requires 9 months of bills to pay, while Brian suggests the controversial option of aborting it.
It There you go, Lois. We abort it. Send it on up to Dale and Naomi. Hell, they're probably waiting for it anyway.
I know this show can get dark, but jeez, dude. Lois and Peter decide to visit a family planning center where they're given a rundown on the abortion process. This sounds good to them, but when Peter goes outside, he runs into anti-abortion protesters that have him watch a video on the matter.
Not only is abortion murder, but it's also larceny, jaywalking, and securities fraud.
Having seen enough, Peter pulls Lois out of the operation against her wishes. The law says Lois still has the right to the procedure despite Peter's concerns. The family goes back and forth on the ethicality of the situation, and Lois affirms she will return to get the procedure.
Lois, you go down there and I'll blow the place up.
You wouldn't.
You've seen Family Guy. You know I would.
He's got a point. He totally would. Lois acknowledges that they need to figure this out together, so they decide to go upstairs and talk until they can come up with a solution that works for both of them. Later that night, Lois says that she thought about it long and hard, expressing all the joy that could come from having another baby. Well, I guess that settles that.
We had the abortion.
Oh, well, I guess that settles that. And I hope you've settled on subscribing to the channel so you can see more Family Guy videos, including the ones appearing on your screen right now.